before I start the video, I want you to know that you are about to see something amazing. Yes, the video is solid and the story is even more impressive. You are about to see something wild, so pay close attention until the end because we are talking about high-quality work. Let's dive into the story. This is about Haruto, a young boy whose father has to move from the city they are living in. Because of this, he has to say goodbye to his girlfriend. Yes, he was only 10 years old, but he managed to do something you, my friend, can't even imagine. Haruto tells his girlfriend, "I have to go with my dad now, but I promise I will come back and marry you. Even if I were to die or get killed, I'll still come back to you." Naturally, the girl was very sad about her boyfriend leaving and didn't want to let him go. However, as the saying goes, the wind does not blow as the ships wish. Of course, the boy leaves, and years pass. Then one day, Haruto, now a teenager, riding a bus, sees a young girl looking at him. Just as he is about to get off, the bus crashes, killing everyone inside. But Haruto regains consciousness, feeling immense pain in his head. He discovers his body has changed and placed in a different realm. His memories start flooding back, causing him immense brain pain and confusion. He doesn't understand what is happening to him. He later finds out that after his death he was transported to another world and he is currently living in this new world under the name Rio. Some people who work with Rio enter the spot carrying something in a bag, which turned out to be food, and they start to eat. Rio, being hungry, tries to join them, but a man scolds him, telling him to get away because his smell would spoil the food. Upset by these words, Rio leaves to eat some fruits he finds on the ground. Still, the memories and his physical transformation overwhelm him. Eventually, Rio gathers himself together and resolves that Haruto died in his original world and it's Rio who lives now. He decides to avenge his mother's death, a scene he witnessed as a child, and is determined never to forget his purpose. Confused, you might not understand everything right now, but stay with me and I'll explain everything gradually. While these thoughts were running through his mind, a group of girls in neat dresses approached him, asking about a girl from their group who got lost. Rio tells them he hasn't seen anything and doesn't know the girl they are looking for. The girls do not believe him and start insulting him, but a girl with white hair intervenes gently, apologizing if her sisters insulted him as they were just upset because their sister is missing. She asks Rio for any information, and captivated by her kind approach, Rio agrees and begins to share all the details he knows. Afterward, Celia used her magical powers to search for the location of their sister, but her magic was not visible. Instead, she discovered that the only one in the area with magical powers like theirs was Rio, and she didn't know how he had them. But never mind that. Celia then rewarded him for the information he had provided by giving him a bag full of money. She then excused herself and left with the girls. Rio quickly tied the bag around his neck and ran to his hut to get back to work. As soon as he opened the door, someone punched him in the chest, knocking him to the ground. But thankfully, the blow landed on the bag he had just received, and Rio was still alive. The criminal, irritated that he hadn't died, went to kill Rio. Of course, Rio was terrified and didn't know how to react. But suddenly, a strange girl appeared before him, grabbed his face, and told him there was no time, and he needed to adapt to his abilities quickly, or they would both die. Rio listened and transformed, tapping into the memories from his previous world. His high combat skills allowed him to overpower and defeat the criminal. After the fight, he noticed the bag moving. He went to check it, and indeed, inside was the girl the others were looking for. She was awake, very frightened, and pleaded with him to take her to her father's castle for a reward. Before he could reply, she fainted after seeing all the dead bodies. He then carried her on his shoulder and went looking for the girls. They saw him, but one girl quickly ran up to him and slapped him, accusing him of denying having seen her earlier and now appearing with her, labeling him a thief and a kidnapper. Rio tried to explain, but the girl was determined in her belief that he was the kidnapper. As he tried to defuse the situation, the group's leader drew her sword and told him that since he lied initially but brought her back, he now had to come with them to the castle to confess everything. There, they would judge if he was telling the truth or if he was innocent, and if found innocent, they would release him. When Rio asked what would happen if he refused, the leader told him it was not a request but an order, and they took him to the castle. Meanwhile, the police went to his workplace and caught the criminal who was about to be arrested when a masked man declared the mission failed and escaped after killing the criminal. At that time, Vanessa had taken Princess Flora to her bed to tend to her injuries. Rio was then taken to jail where the guard, who was interrogating him, demanded that he confess to kidnapping the princess, either politely or by force. Rio didn't confess as he had not kidnapped anyone. The guard, annoyed, beat him senselessly, but Rio endured the beating without responding. Meanwhile, Fiona woke up and Vanessa, sitting beside her, began to explain everything to her. Afterward, Flora insisted, telling them that he was the one who saved her life, and they should bring him and give him a gift. Immediately, Vanessa went to where Rio was being held and found him in a poor condition. She told the guard, "Didn't I tell you to handle him gently? Why did you beat him like that?" The guard replied, "He is a spy. He kidnapped Princess Flora. Just wait, I'll make him confess." Vanessa got angry with him and ordered them to release Rio since he had saved Flora's life. The guard was shocked, and Rio, feeling morose and unable to stand anyone, fell to the ground. Celia then came to speak to him, but he was not receptive until she used healing magic on him to alleviate the pain of the beatings he had taken. After waking up feeling surprised that his wounds had healed, he was more comfortable in the place where he was. Celia reassured him, "Don't worry, everything's fine now. You're okay, and the king himself intends to honor you in a couple of days. I'm sorry for what we caused you yesterday. It won't happen again." Rio, of course, forgave what had happened and asked her to teach him the proper way to speak in front of the king, since he didn't want to cause any more trouble. Celia agreed and offered her help eagerly. Rio was elated. A couple of days later, the king held a celebration and honored Rio by admitting him into the Academy of Nobles, and the situation was very pleasant. After leaving the celebration, Celia met him on the stairs, introduced him to his class and everything, and mentioned she would be teaching there. Given that exams were coming soon and he was new, she told him if he needed anything to come and talk to her, and she would give him private lessons. Rio was very happy and agreed. Then he went to the class but was not welcome there, as it was filled with students from wealthy families who were surprised by the king's decision to include someone like him. Despite their remarks, Rio sat in the class calmly, left the class, and went to learn more from Celia, finding joy in his studies. Eventually, as exam time arrived, and while Rio was studying hard, Celia saw him pressuring himself too much and tried to convince him to relax a bit since his grades wouldn't matter much as a new student. He reassured her that he just wanted to learn. When the exams ended and the results were released after a month, everyone gathered to see Rio's outcome, and surprisingly, he had topped the class. This led to accusations of cheating or receiving help, especially by one upset student who denied believing in Rio's success and arrogantly accused him. However, Princess Christina intervened, stating if there was no solid proof of cheating, he should stop such shameful accusations, as it was unworthy of someone noble. The boy was embarrassed and left. Celia then took Rio to celebrate in her room. She was very happy and impressed by his quick learning, and felt a strong affinity toward him. Over 5 years, their relationship grew closer, and the swordsmanship teacher discovered Rio's skills in fencing, and decided to include him and 2 others in an upcoming competition, despite some objections. While discussing future plans, Rio told Celia that he intended to leave the country to visit his ancestral home, which disappointed her greatly, but she didn't show it. Finally, the competition day arrived where 3 students challenged 3 knights to demonstrate what they had learned. Rio's turn came, and as the referee was about to call him, the student next to him mocked him, telling him not to embarrass them by losing too quickly. Rio ignored him and stepped into the arena, ready for his duel, as the referee called his opponent, Charles, to join him. When Rio saw him, he recognized him as the same person he had been told about when he first arrived at the castle. Charles was very annoyed with Rio because his rank had decreased after Rio defeated him, and he had been sentenced to prison. The referee said to them, "Begin," and Charles attacked Rio with aggressive strikes, giving him no chance to counter in the first and second moves. Rio defended and barely managed to keep up with Charles's movements, which made the spectators anxious, thinking Rio would surely lose. However, Rio attacked back, disarming Charles effortlessly. The referee was shocked and declared the winner, but Charles, disheveled and humiliated, pleaded with the referee, "I was just being lenient with him. Give me another chance and I won't spare him. It's impossible for this boy to beat me." The referee got annoyed and told him, "Charles, pull yourself together. You lost fair and square in front of everyone. You must admit defeat now." Charles finally accepted his defeat and left the area. Celia and the teacher were very happy with Rio's performance, and everyone else was in a state of jubilation, except for one man who sat drinking at night trying to forget what had happened. He kept saying, "This boy looks like the dark days I dread. Whenever I see him, I feel embarrassed and humiliated. I don't ever want to see him again." The man with him was puzzled by his words and asked, "Where have you seen him before? You seem to have known him for a long time," Charles recalled. "Remember 5 years ago when Princess Fiora was kidnapped? He was the one who rescued her, and when I interrogated him, I beat him. As a result, the king punished me." Having heard this, the man became more suspicious and decided to keep a closer eye on Rio, fearing that he might be the same person who killed the criminal and might have plans against the royal family. Meanwhile, Celia was waiting for Rio under a tree, very excited, but she saw another girl calling Rio aside and confessing her love to him. Rio didn't respond, and the girl walked away, but Celia was deeply affected. It seemed she had feelings for him. Later, while Celia was collecting the students' post-graduation desires, she noticed that Rio had not written anything. Her suspicions grew that Rio didn't intend to stay in the country, and she was very saddened by this. A new chapter began where Celia was finally going to teach magic. All the students used magic as usual, joking that it was just an academic requirement for them, nothing more. Although Rio didn't know how to use magic like them, he had a different kind of energy that was even higher, but none of them knew. After the lesson ended and everyone had left the room, Rio confronted Celia to showcase his skills in front of her, but was insulted by another student who accused him of seducing girls daily. Celia, after witnessing this, shouted and defended Rio, saying he hadn't done anything the boy accused him of. Rio was upset when Celia defended him but couldn't react, and the next day brought a new task. The students had an exploration mission in the forest, and they needed to reach its end. An older student named Steele informed them about the terrain and everything else. Steele then revealed a second map, taken from the Stewart family, which he claimed had a shortcut that would lead them to the end of the forest much faster. Everyone listened and followed Steele as they encountered a group of weak monsters, which they quickly dispatched. They continued on the path until they hit a dead end. Confused, Steele exclaimed, "What the heck? Where's the path?" completely baffled about why there was a dead end. But suddenly, more dangerous monsters emerged from behind them. The students despaired, and one of the monsters, armed with a spear, grabbed and injured one of them, causing a commotion. During the chaos, the injured student struck Flora and threw her off a cliff. Rio immediately reacted, using his powers to catch her and bring her back up the cliff, but as a result, he fell in her place. Fortunately, he was unharmed, but was unsure how to explain his actions upon returning. Meanwhile, the students united against the monster and managed to defeat it. They also tended to the injured student's wounds and confronted him, accusing him of pushing Princess Flora and attempting to kill her, which the injured student denied, blaming Rio instead. He claimed that Rio, frightened by the monsters, had hurt him, and that in response, he accidentally pushed Flora off in confusion and regret. The students doubted his implausible story. During this time, the individual who wanted to test Rio's true strength and confirm whether Rio was indeed the one who had killed a criminal in the past remained hidden, watching to see what Rio would do. As the rumors spread that Rio had attempted to flee the country to avoid causing further issues, and considering Rio's discomfort in the country, his plans to leave had become more urgent. A huge, strange monster then appeared, attacking the students with incredible strength. Despite their efforts to fight, the monster was overpoweringly strong, striking down several of them. Seeing Flora and others injured, the monster turned its attention to them, thinking they would be easy prey. Just as the monster was about to strike Flora, Rio, like a hero from the legends, intervened, cutting off the monster's arm and telling Flora to run. He then unleashed his spirit energy and engaged the monster in an intense fight. Flora watched, amazed by Rio's legendary power as he decapitated the monster with one powerful blow, killing it single-handedly. The other students, having reached Flora and Rio by then, witnessed his capabilities. Rio used his powers again to escape swiftly before anyone could approach him. The observer, who had been watching secretly, finally confirmed Rio's true identity and sinister intentions. Following the day's event and the students returned to the castle, Celia, holding some items, went to deliver them to the king. As she was about to knock on the door, she overheard a conversation involving Rio's name. Listening intently, she learned of a plot to scapegoat him for all the day's troubles. The father of the accused boy was excusing his son's actions to the king, insisting that blame should be entirely placed on Rio, a boy of humble origins, arguing that it was crucial to protect the dynasty and not weaken family alliances. The king reluctantly agreed, prioritizing the preservation of noble relations over justice. Hearing this, Celia rushed to the library, deeply worried for Rio. There, Rio, disguised, entered to bid her farewell before leaving. Celia, overwhelmed, embraced him, checking him for injuries and ensuring he was safe. Once reassured, she sat him down and listened as he recounted everything that had happened. Angered by the truth, Celia became fiercely protective of Rio, but Celia was at a loss as to what to do. Rio, on the other hand, confided in her that he could no longer stay in the country and had to escape as soon as possible. However, he told her, "You are the most precious person to me here, which is why I came to say goodbye." Celia, deeply moved by his words, advised him, "Take care of yourself. I will wait for your letters to keep me updated, but don't delay. Rio agreed, but mentioned he would send the letters under a different name, Haruto, to avoid any suspicion. After bidding farewell, Celia ran to him, hugged him tightly, and promised to wait for his return. After he left, her eyes brimmed with tears, barely kept at bay as she remembered all the times they had shared, leaving her in profound sadness. Rio then hurried out of the forest, heading towards Nagumo, his hometown. Along the way, he stopped in Arslan to grab some food and freshen up. He checked the wanted lists in the area and was relieved to see his name wasn't on them yet. After eating, he purchased some spices and ingredients from a local store, then sent the promised message to Celia, assuring her of his safety, and left the city. However, his journey took an unexpected turn when he found a girl lying on the road and went to help her. To his surprise, she attacked him with a poisoned needle, declaring her intent to kill him. Rio quickly defended himself using his spiritual energy and said, "I won't let you kill me." The battle between them was fierce. The girl exhibited semi-animal energy and used magic, which initially caught Rio off guard as he analyzed her tactics. Realizing she focused intensely on her knife, Rio feigned a vulnerability to bait her into attacking. When she did, Rio swiftly disarmed and subdued her, telling her, "You've lost." In defeat, the girl's eyes changed as she wept and called for her mother, puzzling Rio, who calmed her with his powers. She fainted, her past crowding her thoughts. She was from the same world as Haruto and had been on the same bus with him. After her death, she lived on as a slave to a deranged Stuart son, enduring daily tortures until she was conditioned to obey under threat of electric shocks and pain from an enslavement collar. After noticing the collar, Rio deduced that she had been commanded to kill him. He focused his mind to seek a spell to break the collar and succeeded, freeing her. When she awoke to find Rio offering her help, she was initially terrified and tried to reach for the knives behind him. However, Rio assured her, "Don't bother, there's no point. I know you were forced to try to kill me under duress. Don't worry, I've freed you. I just want you to tell me everything." Relieved to not be in pain, tears of joy mixed with her sadness as she recounted everything to Rio. How Stuart had ordered her to kill him without leaving any trace and to ensure his name wasn't listed among the wanted. Now knowing this was all due to that pig, Rio reassured her, "You're free from slavery now. If you want to go to the land of semi-human species like yourself, follow this path for 2 days to find them. Stay with them and never return to that pig." After packing his bag, Rio was ready to leave, but the girl didn't let him go and insisted on following him, expressing her fear of being alone. Befuddled, Rio asked, "What do you want from me?" To which she simply replied, "I want to come with you. I don't like being alone. Please don't leave me behind." Rio, becoming irritated at Latifa's insistence, raised his voice slightly and questioned her. "How can I forgive you when you just tried to kill me? You think I'm just going to forgive someone who's attempted to end my life? You must be dreaming." Latifa, truly frightened by his reaction, displayed the collar and pleaded, "Please take me with you and don't leave me behind. Even if I try something again, beg you, please don't leave me alone here." Rio's expression softened, and he asked, "What's your name?" When she responded Latifa, Rio decided, "All right, Latifa, you will travel with me from today onwards. Let's go." Latifa was overjoyed. For the first time, someone treated her with kindness and made her feel valued. They continued their journey, and during a brief stop along the way, Rio provided her with food, which she consumed quickly and with immense emotional relief, amazed at being treated humanely. Meanwhile, Celia was engrossed in reading Rio's message, filled with happiness, knowing he was out there and wishing him the best. Later that night, Rio and Latifa camped out, and Rio prepared spaghetti from the leftover koshari, surprising Latifa, who recognized the dish from her own world. She explained how she used to eat it back home, which brought them closer as she was touched by his familiarity and care. However, their peaceful night was disrupted. While asleep, Latifa's nightmares spoke of Japan and the traumatic bus accident she had experienced. As Rio listened, he realized she came from his world, and sympathy and protectiveness filled him. In the morning, they resumed their journey, and the bond between them deepened, with Latifa beginning to see Rio as a protective brother figure. Eventually, they reached a certain forest near a visible tree that only Rio could seem to see, signaling something significant was near. That night, while both were sleeping, Rio was awakened by a noise and went to investigate. He encountered a wolf that transformed into a burst of light, blinding him, and as he was trying to regain his senses, semi-human adversaries ambushed him. Before he could react properly, 2 individuals entered their tent to examine Latifa, mistakenly assuming Rio had kidnapped her. This resulted in a severe misunderstanding, leading to Rio being beaten and subdued. When Rio regained consciousness, a familiar girl appeared in his visions, calling him Haruto, expressing apologies for being unable to help him in his current situation, but promising to allow him to dream happy dreams. After she vanished, Rio woke up to find himself shackled, and Latifa rushing towards him with a mix of apology and concern, vouching for his innocence. The village elders, realizing their mistake, apologized and released Rio, ensuring he was treated well. They expressed their gratitude, explaining that they had misunderstood the situation. The elder then extended an offer for Rio to choose any gift, indicating their regret and their desire to make amends. Rio, still processing the whirlwind of events, felt more grounded by the elder's keenness and agreed to discuss the mysterious tree that only those with the spirit's touch could see, hinting at his deeper connection to the mystical aspects of this new world. The village elders, showing warm and respectful attitudes, apologized for the way they brought him here and offered him choices to make up for their aggressive welcome. Rio said to them, "If anyone can teach me the art of spirits, I would be very grateful." Everyone agreed with his suggestion. After that, a woman named Doris, who is revered as the spirit of the tree by everyone, appeared on the scene. Everyone stood up as she approached Rio and placed her hands on his head. She said, "How is it that there is a sleeping human spirit inside you?" Rio didn't understand and asked her how it was possible that he had another spirit inside him, or what she exactly meant. Doris explained everything to him, telling him that he possesses a power that no one else has, and that inside him is a dormant human-shaped spirit. Right now, it's asleep, but if it awakes, it will provide you with great assistance and enhance your abilities significantly, she added. Rio was overwhelmed by the situation, but acknowledged her explanation. As the days passed in the village, Rio began his training and increased his spiritual energy. He learned new skills from everyone in the forest. Latifa also lived there in a clean house with 3 of her semi-human siblings, and she was extremely happy. Meanwhile, a criminal had taken a boy with him into a cave. The criminal told the boy to stay outside while he went in to do something and would return shortly. He then emerged holding a dragon egg. The boy, not understanding the reasons for these actions, asked about it. The criminal dismissed him, saying it was none of his business and that he brought it for some research. "Hold on to it and keep it with you until we reach the town," he ordered. The boy nervously complied and asked the criminal if the dragons wouldn't come after them and cause trouble because they took their egg. The criminal reassured him, "Don't worry, just relax. No one will be able to reach us. We are too far away now," as he watched the dragons following them from a distance, laughing sinisterly, unaware of the impending danger. In the meantime, Rio and Latifa were officially recognized as members of the village, and Doris herself gave them the village seal. They celebrated their acceptance into the community, and the atmosphere was wonderful. Latifa seemed very integrated with the local girls and loved her new life immensely. After Rio saw her, he decided to confess to her that he will be leaving at this time. The criminal descended with his companion to a place near the forest and told the boy, "We will rest here today. You stay here and take this staff, and I will go explore the area." The boy took the staff obediently but was worried. The criminal then used his magic powers to fly up, looking down at dragon tracks while he was inside. He said, "Finally, the time has come to execute the plan." Meanwhile, Rio took Latifa to the same forest, venturing far to make her understand his intentions. Latifa was happy in walking with him, suggesting they return and continue celebrating with the others. As they walked, Latifa asked Rio if he liked living in the village. Latifa replied she liked it and felt loved by everyone there. She had friends, and life was peaceful. Rio then told her that he needed to tell her something important, but before doing so, he asked her one question about her feelings towards their life in the village. Latifa expressed her contentment with the village, mentioning the kindness of the people and her peaceful life. Rio then informed her that he would leave her in the village and continue his journey alone to prevent her from getting hurt in case of any danger. Latifa was shocked and saddened, refusing to be left behind and insisting on accompanying him. Rio tried to explain to her the danger of his journey and his inability to protect her, but Latifa got upset and walked away. At that moment, the town sensed a dragon attack and gathered guards to fight back. Meanwhile, the criminal took advantage of the dragons not being in their nest and went to steal their eggs, indicating a larger scheme he was planning. The humans also noticed the boy's actions and went to interrogate him, but he was scared and freed the eagle he had with him, escaping. He stumbled upon Latifa, who inadvertently hit him, not recognizing him. Thinking he had escaped, he encountered the dragon above him and faced his consequence. The criminal had stolen all the dragon eggs and completed his mission, breaking the staff he had. The boy who took the staff fell to the ground along with the broken egg, which landed in front of Latifa. The dragon saw his broken egg, became enraged, assuming Latifa had killed it. It attempted to strike her, but the boy intervened to protect her, unsure of what to do as they were both being attacked by the dragon. The village was also in chaos. At that moment, as the dragons began their attack, festivities were halted and everyone rushed back home. A man met Rio on the way, and Rio asked him about the situation. The old man informed him that monsters had attacked and the entire forest was surrounded. They needed to escape quickly. Rio immediately thought of Latifa and ran to find her. Meanwhile, Latifa was hiding behind a tree, suggesting they lure the monster away from the village to protect the people. However, she wasn't making sense, attempting to distract the monster on her own away from the villagers. The monster pursued her, broke the tree, and was about to harm her. I imagine you can guess how the boy tries to handle the situation to save her. Rio arrived at the scene, swooped in, picked her up, and told her to stay put. He then confronted the monster barehanded, showing his impressive strength as Latifa watched in awe. The dragon failed to harm Rio, causing an explosion that left the place in shambles. Meanwhile, as the dragon's leader fell, the others fled. Latifa ran to Rio, embracing him, overwhelmed with happiness. The spectators were also amazed by Rio's power, concluding the day on that note. The next day, Latifa began to accept the situation and told Rio that she would stay but wait for his return. She reminisced about all he had done for her and revealed her truth. She informed Rio that she was not from this world, but from another called Earth. She had lived in a place called Japan before an incident transported her here. Even though it might be hard to believe, she felt a connection with Rio because he reminded her of someone she knew in her previous world. To her surprise, Rio revealed that he was also from Japan and had discovered everything about her while she was asleep. Despite his initial hesitation, he decided not to reveal his knowledge. They both assured each other of their companionship, and Rio declared Latifa his little sister from that day onwards, bringing immense joy to Latifa. Subsequently, Rio prepared himself and bid farewell, receiving numerous gifts that filled the place. The man then handed him some pictures, assuring that they would help him in the future. The bracelet in particular carried all his belongings, delighting the boy. Rio prepared his village, setting off towards his parents' homeland as the next chapter begins. But wait, there's more to the story. Let's dive into the continuation for an exciting dialogue, my friend. They finally arrive at the new place where Rio meets people with dark hair like his, unable to figure out who or how to ask. He lets the girl with him guide him to the village leader. By the way, her name is Ruri, and they do find the old lady named Saya, who asks Rio what he wants, sensing he is not from there. Rio tells her everything, revealing that he came to uncover his family's origins as both his parents had passed away when he was young and he never got the chance to see his father. The old lady's demeanor changes upon hearing all this, and she instructs Rory and the other girl to leave. Later, she requests Rio to narrate his full story so she can share everything she knows with him. Rio explains that he and his parents lived in a distant place. His father passed away, and his mother was killed while he was still young. She had promised to guide him to an area called Nagma to understand their heritage, and he had come here to honor them by building 2 graves. The old lady is delighted by his words and reassures him, explaining that his family was very close to her. Rio is shocked and asks how she knows them, to which Saya cryptically reveals that his father was her son, making Rio her grandson. She assures him that they will be together even in the afterlife, with 2 ancestral graves from when they left the village a long time ago. She takes them to visit the graves, where she clarifies everything and mentions that Rio's parents had committed a serious crime, leading to many people chasing them out of the village in haste. They had created the graves to make it seem like they had died, concealing their true fate. Rio is left puzzled by the events and asks Saya for an explanation, but she refuses to disclose more, stating she is not the one to reveal everything. The old lady then returns to her home, leaving Rio at the grave to pray for his parents, deeply saddened by their loss. That night, Rio changes into clean clothes, goes to bed, and the next morning, prepares food and jokes around, sharing a peaceful moment. He meets a skilled boy named Shin, and they decide to go hunting. While Rio excels in hunting, Shin struggles, not doing much. At day's end, Rio finds his clothes dirty and forcefully takes a bath to clean up. Rory and the girls are surprised to see him emerge from the bath looking immaculate. They tease him, but are amazed by his cleanliness. The next day, while Rio is speaking with a lady, they hear a commotion from the bath area. They rush over to find Shin arguing with a bull, questioning why Rio was in the bath. He challenges the girls, demanding Shin leave the village. The situation turns hostile as Shin becomes aggressive towards Rio, but is swiftly subdued by him. The old lady intervenes, scolding Shin for his behavior and revealing that, being the son of the neighboring village's chief, he is spared. Shin explains he had come looking for their broken car and was willing to stay a few days if they allowed him. The old lady remains silent, and Shin walks away. As he does, he encounters Ryo, attempting to trip him, but ends up falling himself. Later, the tax collector arrives in town, and they all spend the day together. Meanwhile, Ryo, who had been training, impresses Rory and the others with his muscles. Intrigued by his dedication, Rory asks why he trains so rigorously every day. Ryo recalls a past promise to protect his beloved, saying he continues to train in the hope of one day fulfilling that vow. Though they are apart now, he remains committed and trusts they will reunite eventually. That's the end of my story. The girls were deeply moved by Ryo's words and were overjoyed. Later that night, Kwama went to sleep with Rory because they were all scared of the dog John. When Ryo noticed, he handed them a stone, instructing them to keep it in their room. In case of any emergency, he assured them he'd protect them. The girls listened and took the stone. While they were sleeping, John and his companion were planning how to break into their room. They waited until everyone was asleep. John then went to their room, where Rory opened her eyes to find the dog pressing on her chest, instructing her not to make a sound. If she did, he threatened violence. Imagine her helplessness, but Ryo was nearby. The legend himself was witnessing the scene, remembering his mother's tragic fate. He asked John what he was doing and, enraged, told him to leave while aggressively confronting him. But John retaliated, leading to a physical confrontation. The girls were amazed at Ryo's strength. The tax collector managed to separate them, warning John of the consequences of causing harm. Acknowledging the events, he left, vowing revenge on the dog that killed his mother, realizing he had lost his way and must refocus on his original goal. The following day, everyone expressed gratitude for Ryo's heroism in saving the girls, including the tax collector, who was astounded. The tax collector prepared himself, seizing John and his companions, vowed to take control. As he handed a message over to John's father, a man named Hayati, the old lady handed Ryo a message to deliver to his father when he returns. John's father received the message, overjoyed, and departs to fetch his son. He finds him and Ryo, unable to believe his eyes at the striking resemblance between them. The man is puzzled but begins to explain the story of what happened to Ryo's mother long ago. He told him that your mother was from the royal family. I used to be her servant and responsible for her protection. Once, while I was training the soldiers, I encountered a young, violent, strong, and scary man who defeated all enemies in war beside me. He was the one winning the battles. I challenged him to a one-on-one fight to test his strength, and he defeated me. At that moment, I decided to assist this person in protecting the princess who is your mother, Ryo. Yes, this person was your father, Zan. Over time, the relationship between the two began to grow closer, and the girl eventually fell in love with him. However, at one point during a meeting, the emperor's son saw her and was impressed by her beauty. He sent his servant at night to kidnap her, but your father intervened, struck the servant, and killed the emperor's son. When he learned about the incident, he was furious because his servant died and he ended up marrying the princess for political reasons. If this had not happened, he would turn against them, and the whole country would plunge into war. Because of this, the king, due to his lack of options, made your mother and father flee the village to escape the brutality of those dogs. They were in deep sorrow at that time. Ryo heard the story, and obviously agreed with it. He then told him that he wanted him to meet the king and queen. He had just informed them of his presence a while ago, and their greatest wish now was to see him. Will you come to see them with me, Ryo, or not? The boy of course agreed and went with him. Upon arrival, he found them sitting there, not believing that they had finally seen their grandchild. They were overjoyed. Ryo also greeted them and began a normal conversation, but the grandfather eventually asked Ryo to tell him his complete story and inform him of everything that had happened to him from start to finish. Ryo started talking and narrated his sad story, mentioning that when he was young, he lived with his mother, both very happy. Yes, they were poor, but every day was good with them until one day, my father's friend Lucius entered while I was at home and started beating me with his foot, then drank a glass of medicine. After that, my mother saw him and asked him what he was doing, trying to stop him from hurting me. But he turned on her and killed her in front of my eyes. I was watching, unable to do anything. I didn't understand why he did that, but I swear, when I see him, I know his place, and I seek vengeance on him in the end. The grandfather and grandmother were, of course, upset about what happened to their grandson, asking him if he intended to continue on the path of revenge or let go of it. Ryo told them, I know that the path of revenge is harsh and full of obstacles, but no matter how tough it gets, I won't take any other path. I won't find peace except in avenging. This dog's dead now, reminiscing in his secrets, believing he had great power. Just to make sure of your strength, you will duel with me in combat. No one has defeated him before except your father, and I want to verify your strength right now to see if you can seek revenge or not." After that, Rio said, "Okay," and they went to the arena to catch their breath. Hayate rolled up his sleeve and stared at Rio fiercely, judging him as weak. However, what he didn't know was that he was about to face defeat. Everyone watching couldn't believe their eyes as the legendary Hayate found himself unable to do anything against Rio at that moment. Hayate, now taken aback, attempted to revert, acting as if he would finish the match. Imagine, can he really finish anything, my friend? No, by God. Rio then used his strongest technique, finishing Hayate off. The grandfather and grandmother were shocked, telling him, "You won't hurt us. We're not afraid for you. Once you've done everything you want, come back to us and you'll find us waiting with open arms." Rio said, "Okay," and then returned to the village. Everyone was alerted, thinking the worst, but Rio was not there. Rory found him standing at his mother and father's grave, reaffirming his oath and telling them, "I have understood everything that happened. I will take your revenge. Don't worry, goodbye." Rio then returned home and informed Rory of everything. The girl was delighted that Rio was her cousin and was overjoyed. Later, the boy told her that he was not planning to stay with her forever, at most until the next harvest, after which he would continue his journey to explore the world. She did not object to his decision and told him it was okay. As days passed, Rio integrated with all the villagers, helping them in many ways. Everyone loved him, and life was peaceful. However, one day, while teaching the children some basic things, the girl overheard that he would soon leave the village in another 2 months. This saddened her greatly, and she couldn't hold back her tears. She told him, "It's okay." The girl returned home sobbing, unsure of what to do. Her brother saw her and asked, "Why are you crying like this? Who upset you so much?" The girl tells her brother, "No one upset me. I just found out that Rio will leave the village in another 2 months. But he hasn't done anything. The problem is with me." Shin, after overhearing the conversation, realizes she has fallen deeply in love with him. Because of this, he goes to the old lady's house, knocking on their door. Rio comes out to meet him, asking him why he came at this time. Shin kneels on the ground, bowing his head, and begs Rio, "Please stay in our village. I know I have been a burden to you, but please don't leave." His sister sees him, and he's kneeling for her sake. She is upset and heads over to them, apologizing for what she had done. Her brother looks at her, unable to do anything, deeply saddened by her actions. Rio understands the situation a bit and realizes what was happening. Days pass, months go by, and finally, the day of the harvest arrives. Rio is set to leave soon. Everyone celebrates, eating the food Rio cooked for them, and everything seems all right. But as Rio stands there, a girl approaches him, her cheeks flushed. Rio goes with her to see what she wants. The girl stands there, embarrassed, confessing her love to Rio, telling him, "Please take me with you on your journeys. I love you, and I can't live without you." When Rio finishes speaking, he rejects her request, saying, "I'm sorry, but I won't be able to share the same feelings as you." Despite her efforts to convince him, Rio's heart belongs to someone else, someone he met the moment he arrived. Shin watches and sees his sister's heartbreak before him, unable to do anything. Rio then prepares his belongings the next day, says his goodbyes, with everyone saddened by his departure. When she doesn't show up to bid him farewell, Rio leaves feeling remorseful for breaking her heart. But as he exits the village, he finds her waiting there, telling him, "Tell him I know you currently don't love me, but trust me, I won't give up. I will keep trying until the very end. You just have to step up your game to keep up with me. Goodbye, uncle." The boy is happy to see her back to her spirited self. He bids farewell and heads towards the city of Insafal Hayawanat, where he encounters a friendly camel. The girl is overjoyed at his return and is ecstatic. Rio bids farewell to all the villagers, letting them know he was passing through, and decided to bid them farewell. Rio tells them that he plans to build a small house with them during his stay. Everyone welcomes the idea and decides to help him out. He then returns home, goes to sleep, and suddenly wakes up to find a girl next to him screaming. The girls, upon hearing the commotion, rush to his voice and witness the scene before them. "I don't know, don't misunderstand me." The girls do not comprehend the situation, and Rio and the others are standing there in shock, wondering what is happening. The girl then introduces herself as Dee, the contracted soul with Roto, who saved him when he was young. She is awake now, but has forgotten her memories and does not know anything about herself. Therefore, Rio names her and tells her to come with him, making it appear as if he will take her to meet Doris and learn her background. By the way, her real name is Aisha, They then proceed to the village elders, where everyone gets acquainted with her, and everything goes smoothly. After a while, Doris arrives at the scene, continuing from the soul experience, and her energy encounters many questions, but the girl is unsure how to answer them. Doris then asks her about the types of elements she uses, and Aisha replies that she uses them all. Doris doesn't believe what she's hearing and asks Rio to test her strength. They step outside for a real trial, and initially, Rio tries to fight her up close, but Aisha's movements were swift and led the exchange. She demonstrates all the spirit elements seriously, not playing around, and even showcases her high spiritual energy. She disappears from the area, showcasing her incredible ability. Doris stops them before they destroy the forest and provides them with all the knowledge about the spirits. They continue sitting there, learning more about each other's abilities. As days turn into months, Rio finally completes his stay, preparing to continue on his journey. He bids farewell to everyone in the village, offering them gifts, including a hairpin that changes hair color to any chosen shade. He also takes the acorn that allows him to return to the forest in an instant. After bidding farewell to Tifa, he heads off, leaving everyone behind. Later, he decides to pass by the kingdom where he once learned as a child, so he decides to bid farewell to Celia, explaining that he couldn't send her messages for 2 years. At that moment, Celia stands in the garden, holding the last message from Rio, feeling very sad and upset for not hearing from him. Suddenly, her dog Charles approaches her, seemingly propose to her, but she is not ready. Meanwhile, Rio arrives in the city and disguises himself with ice to remain incognito. They strive to be discreet and eventually reach Celia's room. Upon entering the palace, they find her office completely empty without a trace of anything inside. Rio is shocked, taking Aisha with him to interrogate a man next to the office to find out where Celia is and why she isn't there. The man informs him that she is currently at the Duke's palace. Rio is confused as to why she's there and asks for the reason. The man explains that it's natural for her to be there as she's been chosen to marry Charles. When Rio hears this news, he is extremely shocked and unsure how to react. He then inquires if this marriage was of her own will or not. The man informs him that it's a political marriage. 3 years ago, a war broke out in the kingdom, causing the king and his daughter Flora to flee. In order to strengthen ties between the ruling families, Celia was chosen to marry Charles. Rio is taken aback by the revelation and decides to go to Celia to ask her directly and find out more. He instructs Aisha to search for the place where she is located, and they discover that she is in a heavily guarded palace, making it impossible for anyone to approach her. Imagine the impact of this conversation, my friend. No, by God. He leaves without being seen and finally reaches Celia. She is very upset and contemplates burning the messages from Haruto. However, when the hero appears, she can't believe her eyes. His hair returns to its natural color, and Celia recognizes him, not initially believing it's him. She embraces him, overjoyed, and they have a heartfelt conversation. While standing, Celia quickly goes to prepare tea for him. At that moment, Rio mentions having heard she will marry tomorrow. He expresses that while he doesn't want to interfere in her decision, he doesn't think Charles deserves her. Do you know that Celia, in appreciation, and acknowledges that she will marry Charles the next day? I know your memories with him aren't pleasant, but I've matured and reached the age for marriage, so I must wed now. Rio asks her if she's truly sure about her decision, whether she really wants to be with Charles. Celia eventually gets candid and explains that she will go through with the marriage, accepting the reality of the situation graciously. Rio understands but still advises her not to regret her choice. Perplexed, he suggests that if she declines, he will take her away from there. But Celia insists he doesn't worry about what she said earlier and leaves to avoid being captured by the guards. Rio is bewildered by Celia's actions and tries to get details from her, but she remains silent, telling him to leave. Confused, Rio walks away, still not understanding the situation. Meanwhile, Celia is ecstatic after seeing her beloved for the last time, expressing that she preferred to simply listen without burdening him. She insists he doesn't need to bear her problems, conveying her feelings to Rio. Rio, visibly saddened and displeased by the situation and Celia's behavior, searches for the complete truth. The following day, while Celia prepares for her joyous occasion, a tinge of sorrow is visible on her face. In a different setting, Charles is collaborating with a criminal to bring down the royal family and seize the throne. The criminal senses a presence but cannot locate its source. Celia, having concluded her part, leaves the scene, and Charles enlightens her about his previous 6 wives, preferring her as his 7th. As the wives speak condescendingly to Celia, reminding her of her place once she marries Charles, she quietly absorbs the insults, feeling immense sorrow. Unable to respond, she observes and hears everything, later informing Rio about the happenings. Celia then fulfills her role next to Charles, sealing their union. Witnessing Celia's sad departure from the scene, Rio is filled with sorrow and disappointment. As she descends, still holding Charles's hand, his violent nature reasserts itself. Yes, Rio confronts the soldiers, effortlessly defeating them one by one with swift movements. Turning to Charles, he warns the guards not to move, threatening them if anyone approaches Celia. Confused, Celia doesn't understand why he's acting this way, inadvertently putting herself in a challenging situation. Communicating with her telepathically, Rio reassures her that he means no harm and is only seeking to understand her desires. He offers her a choice: to request a way out without implicating her family, or to proceed with her marriage to Charles. Despite Rio's gesture, Celia is perplexed by his actions and unsure why he entwined himself in this complex situation. Rio enlightens her about his intentions and gives her the freedom to decide her fate. He proposes one last time, asking her directly, "What do you want, Celia?" In this scenario, Celia, feeling overwhelmed and unable to think clearly, gathers her courage and tells Rio, "Take me with you. I don't want to marry that dog." Rio responds to her plea firmly, carrying out her wish and confronting Charles, declaring, "I'll take your bride away from you on your wedding day, and you won't be able to do anything about it." As he runs off with Celia, she is ecstatic, though her family is concerned. However, when her father observes her expression, he senses there is more to the situation than meets the eye. Meanwhile, the criminal suspects Rio of using soul magic and recognizes him from a previous encounter. Anticipating an attack, the criminal challenges Rio to test his skills. After a fierce confrontation, Rio manages to escape with Celia, with soldiers in pursuit. Cornered in a small street, Rio instructs Celia to run while he fends off the soldiers. Using his full strength, he overpowers the soldiers, causing them to fall to the ground. Just when he is about to flee, the formidable soldier arrives. Ferrito, the kingdom's most powerful soldier, launches an attack on Rio. Despite Ferrito's relentless assault, Rio defends himself, ultimately defeating him with a powerful strike, incapacitating the soldiers around him. As Celia takes the opportunity to escape with Isha, Rio distracts the soldiers, causing chaos in their ranks. In a dramatic turn of events, Rio seemingly disappears, leaving the soldiers bewildered and believing he has perished. However, he manages to swiftly reach Celia, who is overjoyed and runs towards him. Initially in disbelief, she embraces him warmly, recalling how he had saved her before. Grateful for his sacrifice and risking his life to protect her, Celia expresses her heartfelt gratitude towards him. Rio then reassures her, saying, "It's okay. This is the least I can do for you to ensure everything is calm in the end." Suddenly, a strange light emerges between them, causing Aisha to become extremely tense. She quickly tells Rio, "You must save those in that direction. They are currently in danger." In that area, 3 girls descend from the sky, one of them being the first love of Haruto. They have been abducted by a group intent on harming them. The situation is dire, as one of them might be killed today. Rio arrives at the scene and hears the girls speaking Japanese, realizing they are from the same world and have been kidnapped. Without further ado, he approaches everyone, opens the door, and addresses the group inside, asking if anyone is with them, and they point at a building. He unlocks the key to the building and sees Michan, who looks so much like Michan, but the lady thanks him and addresses herself as Ayase Miharu.